Victoria Saylor, and people call me Vicky. I go by both. Usually I respond to Victoria when my mom's getting me in trouble. Even with my age right now, when I hear her say Victoria, I know that I'm in trouble. But you can call me Vicky or Victoria, and that's fine. And I am the Senior Manager for Education and Community Partnerships for Common Sense Media. We are a nonprofit and we are based in San Francisco, but I am located in Phoenix, Arizona. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Common Sense, what we are is we are a nonprofit organization. And what we do is we focus on keeping kids safe and healthy in this digital world. We want to make it a better place for kids and families. We want to make sure that they have the digital access that they need. So we work really hard to close the digital divide and help families get digital devices as well as internet access. We also want to make sure that you have a source to make good media choices. So a lot of people know us from our ratings and reviews. If you want to watch a certain movie, for example, you can go onto our ratings and reviews and you can preview the movie, or you can read the review to see if it's going to be appropriate for your children. And then we also have a digital literacy and citizenship curriculum in the schools, and MCPS is using that curriculum. And those are lessons to teach kids how to be a good digital citizen. So when I say that, it's somebody who uses the internet safely, creatively, respectfully, and making good choices, treating others nicely, and also treating yourself nicely online and portraying yourself in a positive way. And then just overall helping support a healthy childhood. So we talk a lot about our social emotional health. We're hearing a lot of things about mental health right now, and the connection between social media and mental health. So we do a lot of research. We partner with the graduate school at Harvard University. So we partner with them to do our research. We've also partnered with Northwestern. So you know that all of our research is evidence-based. And our tips and advice is not just things that we have come up with. We've actually studied this, and you can feel confident that the things that we are giving you have been consulted with. We consult with doctors and other health professionals as well. And like I said, with universities. So today's goals are: we want to help manage a healthy and safer online experience. We want to create a balanced approach to media and tech use at home. I hope after today, you can also create a family tech plan to enhance online safety, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then I also hope you can find our website easy to navigate, and I will share with you where you can access all of our resources. Again, all of our resources are free at no charge. When you do go to our website, you might see something that says donate. Don't let that deter you. Don't let that scare you. That's only if you want to donate. We are a nonprofit, so we rely on donations, but we have really big funders. So you don't have to worry about that. We have huge funders, Apple Computer, even Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, even though we talk badly about Facebook. So he still gives us money. So we have a lot of support. So don't get deterred by that at all. Everything's free. Okay, so before we begin, what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to consider your own children, and you can use the chat to share your ideas or your answers. So when you think about your kids and what you want to see them participate in, the types of behaviors you want to see them avoid also. So what are the behaviors you want to see your kids avoiding on digital spaces? So what kinds of behaviors do you want to avoid? And then what behaviors do you want to see in their digital spaces? So, you know, if you want to share both or just one or the other, for example, I want to make sure when my child was growing up, when my children were growing up, I wanted to make sure that my daughter, I didn't want to see her posting a bunch of selfies with her body, like all over the place like that. I would see girls doing that, and I really didn't want her to participate in that. So that was one of the behaviors I wanted to avoid. And I wanted her to avoid, and I didn't want to see that on her digital footprint. What behaviors did I want to see? I wanted to see her using nice language. I wanted her to be creative. I wanted her to use technology, not just for consumption, but also to do something creative with her time. Zoe, do you have a question?
Well, more to add to what you're saying is what I would like to actually avoid, my daughter is younger, but of course I'm worried for the future, and I see in the schools the behaviors of what basically the students do. And what worries me is about, let's say, follow challenges, those trendy challenges in social media or digital spaces, and I would like her to see or use more this as a tool for learning, sorry, for to learn skills, to have more knowledge instead of using them just recreationally.
Right. So not just using media and tech for entertainment purposes, but also for educational purposes. And that's a very common need and want of parents, right? There's nothing wrong with using it for entertainment, but if that's all we did with it, we wouldn't take all of the benefits from it too. There are a lot of benefits from our technology use. So let's look in the chat and see if anybody has shared some of their concerns and also some of the things that they want to see. Oh, I think we're being shy. Okay, well, think about it. If you want to share later, that's okay too. Or if you just want to keep it in your mind, that's okay too. So think about it as we reflect and go through this presentation. What are some behaviors you want to see? And what are some behaviors you don't want to see your kids participate in? Let's see if anything came in. Nope.
I
Okay,
actually saw something from Noriko Kim saying at the beginning of the presentation, actually, that she was looking to know like more about what my kids are watching online, mostly through YouTube, but have some concerns about like some contents. How do I redirect them?
Yeah, so that's a very common concern. We're concerned about what our kids are seeing, right? We're concerned that the things that they're seeing is going to affect them negatively. So we want to have them avoid seeing things that are inappropriate for them. So one of the things we can absolutely do is talk to them about the places that they want to be, right? And if they do want to be on YouTube, ask them why. Why do they like YouTube so much? What is it about YouTube that attracts them? You can always set up your YouTube accounts. You can use the privacy settings, and that's something that we'll get into later. But you can also use it with them. You can also create channels that you can, where you can put things in there that are appropriate for them. Really get to know the apps that you're looking at. And that's another thing that we'll show you. We have a resource for that. Like if you don't know everything that YouTube can do, for example, or if you don't know everything that Instagram can do, we have a resource that can help you understand these applications and these websites a little better. But a lot of it starts with communication and really setting down your rules and your expectations, and then aligning those with your family values. Sometimes the conflict, for example, with media and technology can be more damaging than the actual technology itself. So that's one thing to think about. Like if you and your family are always fighting or arguing about media and technology, or, they're always on their phone, or they don't want to put their stuff away, they don't want to, they only want to watch TV, they only want to play video games. If that's creating a lot of tension and arguments in your family, either between you and your spouse or you and your children, it's time to take a step back and think about how can we do this better? Because sometimes those arguments and that conflict can actually be very detrimental to your mental health as a parent, but also to their mental health and also to the relationship in general. So if you do find that you guys are having conflicting views on something, you need to sit down and have an honest conversation with them. A lot of times we don't know where to begin. We have some conversation starters for you. Like I said, ask them, why do you like this? Tell me something you like about it. And ask them, what do you see on here that makes you uncomfortable? Put it back on them, because they're probably going to have really good ideas. And more than likely, they're going to tell you what makes them uncomfortable. And then so you can guide them with that. And you can say, so when this happens, what can you do to get out of that situation? You can get out, right? You can shut it down. You can adjust your settings. A lot of times YouTube has the autoplay. So when they're done watching one video, another one comes on, and it might be a video that they didn't choose. And so those are some things you can talk to them about. All right, we're going to keep going. So as I'm talking about setting those expectations and those rules, we want to begin with the rules, but we want to teach them how to maneuver the internet, how to use it wisely, but why? And that's what I was talking about. Like, why do we want you to use it wisely? Because we care about you, we're your parents, and because we know that some of these things can have a negative effect on our minds and our emotional health. We know that, for example, we did a study about social media, and we found that social media is really affecting our young girls, our middle school age girls in particularly. And we think it's due to the pressure that young girls are getting on the Instagram application about their bodies and about their looks. And for whatever reason, we have the heart icon, and they're worried about how many hearts they're going to get. But if you look at the comments for girls, and if they post a picture of themselves and they look very pretty, or it could just be a very innocent picture too. It doesn't have to be a suggestive picture. Sorry. It doesn't have to be a suggestive picture, but even a nice picture, like if she's just sitting there, it's never like you're so pretty or that's a nice picture. It's always like the fire icon, like you're so hot or you're so gorgeous. And like, it's the pressure to always look like this. And so they get that. And then now they're afraid to put anything else on there because they've always gotten these comments. And we're showing in research that it's having a negative effect on their mental health. And so, and for boys, whenever they post something, for whatever reason, it's you're so strong, or you're so cool. So it's different, it's just different. It's all about looks for the girls. And so those are some things we can talk to them about. How does it make you feel when you're on this? So we want to talk about the why also, not just the rules, but teach them how we can implement these rules and why we're implementing these rules. And when you think about it, I don't know how old you guys are. You're probably much younger than I am. But when I was growing up, it was not like it is today. It has just exploded, right? Technology has gone it has increased so fast since the iPhone was established in, I think, 2007. I think that's when the first iPhone was released. Ever since the iPhone was released, we've had a boom in technology. And if you look at this graphic right here, this represents every 1 minute of the day. So every 1 minute, like every minute, that's how many people are on those apps. So for example, if you look at TikTok, there are 167 million people watching a video every minute. I can't even wrap my head around that number. And look at how much bigger TikTok is than all the other ones. Like, just notice. Instagram's very popular with kids. It's only 65,000. I can't. Parents still love Facebook. So that one's, 44 million. But look at the difference between Facebook and TikTok. 44 million to 167 million. I know TikTok's very controversial. Always, always, always adjust your settings. If you don't want your kids using TikTok, make sure that they're not. Make sure that you're telling them why. Make sure that you're also being a good role model. And so those are just some, I just wanted you to see that, because sometimes you just don't realize how big it is.
I have a question actually.
Yeah.
Another parent that says, from Tawana Stokes. Actually, she wants to know, how do I know when games or apps have chat features? I would like to avoid that. And also, how do I balance apps that, for example, YouTube, there's a lot of resources that the schools send in YouTube, but I want to avoid it because she has deleted it for the kids.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Those are all very valid concerns. And later on, I'm going to show you where you can find some of our resources where you can learn more about these apps and how to set them up appropriately and how to figure out if they do have a chat feature. A lot of parents don't realize that if a game has a chat feature, it's considered social media. And if you think about it, social media has not been recommended for kids under 13. So if your child is playing Minecraft or Roblox and there's a chat feature on there and your child's 10 years old, Your child is now part of social media if he's chatting or she's chatting, because chatting online is part of social media. It doesn't have to be an Instagram or Facebook or TikTok to be considered social media. So it's very important for you to understand all of the apps that you're allowing your children to download and have on their phone or on their device. And we can show you where that information is for you. We have resources where you can learn more about these apps and websites. But a lot of parents wonder, when is it okay to buy my child a phone? When you're thinking about it, the average age for phones is 10 years old. It's getting younger and younger. And what works for one family doesn't work for another family. And what works for one child doesn't work for another child. There are different reasons you might need a phone. My child was in 6th grade. He was 11. I needed to give him a phone because he was walking home from school or riding his bike, and I was working. And I was very scared that by the time he got home, his babysitter didn't drive. And by the time he got home, I was afraid that maybe something could happen to him or he had an accident. Some of the kids were kind of mean to him at one point. So I was concerned that maybe he would be bullied. So I gave him a phone. We gave him a phone, but we didn't give him a smartphone. Okay. We gave him a starter phone. So there are things you can do to get your kids ready for phones. You don't have to give them a smartphone. Giving them a smartphone is giving them the internet. Basically, you're giving them a computer in a phone. So you need to assess your child and understand what their needs are, what your family's needs are. Some families are, they live in 2 houses, right? The dad lives in one house, the mom lives in another house. And so a lot of times the child needs a way for the other parent to get a hold of them. So there are different reasons. Some kids take public transportation at a young age. It's just different for everybody. So that's why we don't want to judge any parents. We don't want our parents to judge other parents either. What works for you doesn't work for another family. But some things that you can think about before making a decision is ask yourself if your child is responsible. Do they show responsibility with other things? Are they responsible with their schedules? Are they responsible in their behaviors? Do they lose things or do they keep their things safe? So if they're responsible, that's one thing to think about. Exactly what I was talking about, safety. Are there reasons you need to be in touch for your kids to stay safe? Maybe your child is 13 and they are okay staying alone in the house, but you don't have a house phone and you need them to have their own phone so that if anything happened, right, or you need to get a hold of them, they could have a cell phone. I don't have a home phone anymore. A lot of people don't. So these are some things you can think about. Also, are they social? Sometimes parents will not give their child a phone and the child complains because all their friends have a phone and they feel left out. They're not able to interact with their friends. The world is a very different place right now than it has been. And I used to play with my friends outside. We lived in the same neighborhood. Nowadays, kids, their neighborhoods, they come from all over to come to one school, or they're not allowed to be outside because it's dangerous, for example. And so how can they interact with their friends? They're interacting online with their friends. And as much as we want them to be in person with their friends, sometimes it's just not possible. And so if your child is feeling left out because all of their friends have a phone and they don't have a way to communicate, that could be a problem. So just think about it and you can make your decision, but there are ways you can do that. You can say, I'm going to allow you to use this phone for an hour a day, and then you're going to turn it into me. And in that hour, that person, you can be social, but you're not going to have it the whole day. You're not going to have it the whole night. You're not going to take it to school or whatever. But there are ways you can make adjustments based on your needs and based on your children's needs. And then again, are they respectful or are they immature? Are they not learning to be nice with other people? Do you see that they pick on other people? Because it's not just other people, other kids that are picking on our kids. Sometimes it can be our own kids that are still learning how to get along with others. My child, at one point, I could see him picking on his neighbors, and I would have to say, don't be mean. You have to be nice. I mean, these are kids, they're pushing limits. So if you think that your child's not ready, that a phone could maybe make them meaner or could put them down a path of cyberbullying, then those are some things to think about. And then another thing yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, something that I would like to mention regarding that is like I know some parents are using something called Gizmo. Mm-hmm. It is kind of like a device. It looks like an Apple Watch, and actually, if you pay like a plan, it's a small portion or a small amount, and you can actually set up like you can see the location of the kid, where's the kid, or you can communicate with them, or even they have something set up so they can, if for some reason they would like to communicate with the parents, or if there is an emergency, they can just press something and call 911, call the parents. So I think that is a good idea if parents are not sure to give them a phone, or buy a phone.
Yeah. And like I said, there are starter phones, there are smartwatches. They don't have to be the iWatch. Like you said, there's the Gizmo. There are different things that you can learn about. And we do have those resources on our website as well. But talk to your own providers as well. When you go to your cell phone carrier, if you have Verizon or T-Mobile, when you go into the store, ask them, is there a starter phone that I could get for my child? Or is there a special watch where I can still track my child? Your child, like if they would have had that watch when my child was little, maybe I could have just got him a watch and then I would know where his location was when he was walking home. Because for example, the phone that I gave him didn't have the location. And so that's a very good benefit to having that, all those different features now. Another reason that phones can be not a good idea if your child's not ready for it, because if they're not going to be able to use it with your rules in place. But if you do choose to give your child a phone or your teenager a phone, we recommend not charging it in their bedroom. We did another study and we found out that not only are 60% of preteens and teens viewing their phones within an hour before bedtime, but they're also being interrupted in their sleep by notifications. They're also being disrupted by the blue light that, is shining in their face at night. It can really impact their mental health when they're not getting enough rest. And it can also interfere with their academics. So their grades might slip if they're not well rested. Their health might be different. Also, they might be grumpy. Their friendships might suffer. Their relationships with you might suffer if they're not getting adequate sleep. So having rules in place and letting them know why is really important. So, we're going to give you a phone, but we're not going to sleep next to it because it's really important that you get your rest. And my children would always tell me, well, I need to use it for my alarm. Well, then I bought him an alarm clock and he didn't even know what it was. He's like, what is this? And I said, let me show you my other gadgets. You will not know what my other gadgets are either. And it's pretty funny when you give them an old piece of technology and they don't know what to do with it. But I gave them an old fashioned alarm clock because that's what my solution was, well, I needed to wake up. Well, I'll wake you up, so just do what works for you. My daughter, she was another story. She had to get up very early. She needed to get in touch with her friends early because she was on a swim team. She had a carpool going on. She was already 16. I felt like I could trust her with her phone in her room. So it's all on an individual basis. You know your children better. Again, you can always have regular check-ins with them to see how they're doing. You can also track the usage on their phone. You can, you can see when they're using their phone. It should be an open door policy with the phones. I don't ever recommend your kids having that much privacy. A lot of kids will want it, but they're still kids. So don't feel afraid to be the parent, but always talk to them about it. Because like I said, if we're yelling, if we're arguing, the conflicts can even be worse. So just always keep those lines of communication open, and then you'll probably be happier with it. And they'll probably be happy with it, even if they don't like the answer. So we're going to set up our devices with safety in mind. That's the number one thing we're going to do. So on your phone, obviously, you're going to make sure that they're not sharing their location, that they're not sharing their passwords, that they're blocking users that are strangers. If they are using social media, that they're posting to friends only, that they make sure that those posts are private. So just make sure that you are visiting these settings with your kids, that you're reviewing these settings with them and making sure that they are set up how you want them to be set up. And we also recommend that you visit this regularly, because a lot of times kids know how to take them off, they'll change them. And sometimes even the own phone will revert back to the factory settings without you even knowing it. So always make sure that it's set to how you want it. For example, if you do an update, sometimes it'll revert back to the factory settings, and now all of a sudden you're sharing your location. So just because you set it up one time doesn't mean you don't have to go back and check. And then another thing is, whatever apps you're using also have their own settings. Your phone has its own settings, but any application that you're using has its own settings also. So you might not be sharing your location on Google, for example, but you're sharing it on Instagram. So make sure that you're reviewing all of the different settings on all the different websites and applications that you're using. And then, of course, if you find that parental controls are necessary, these are some things that you can do before that. Identify your goals and find the right tool. There are a lot of free ones out there. Your phones come with their own set of parental controls, but you can also purchase some, and there's also some free ones. And again, rather than me tell you what they are, I don't know what your family needs. Again, you can go on our website and you can find out what they all are like, how much they cost and all that. But the best parental control is really going to be you. We want to set them up for success. So really find one that really suits your needs, right? If you're going to use something, we don't recommend spying on your kids. Again, when it's all about the relationships, if they find out you're spying on them, then it's a big problem. Be open about it. If you're going to check, how much time they're using it, tell them, I'm going to check how much time you're using. I'm going to check what websites you're on. Now, some kids can feel very offended by that, but it's our job as a parent. And if that's something that you choose to do, explain it to them. Some parents will say, I don't want to use parental controls. First of all, I'm probably not going to check them. I'm going to probably not let them be online that much, whatnot. So you just do what works for you. And then always remind yourselves that there could be some troubleshooting that goes on. For example, like I was saying, they know how to take things off. They know how to, kids are sneaky. They're still pushing limits. They're pushing boundaries. I think somebody was telling me there's a calculator app that is actually, it looks like a calculator app, but it's not a calculator app. I've never seen it, but if anybody's seen it, let me know, because supposedly it's something that kids use to hide things. So on their phone, it'll look like the calculator, but it's not the calculator. That's what somebody told me. So kids are sneaky, and we just have to continue to be vigilant.
I think maybe that relates a lot with how you can custom, because now you can change like the pictures of the apps as well. So sometimes like they disguise using widgets. For example, like iPhones now have access to different ways to modify the apps as the aspect, but like the app itself is still going to be the same. So technically, like they can change the image of the app, how it looks, and then and you're still opening like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram.
So if you're a parent and you say, I don't want you using TikTok, and the child says, okay, I won't use TikTok, right? They can still use TikTok, and they just put a different cover, like a different widget, different icon.
That is correct. They have
it might look like an innocent game, or even an educational game, right?
Yes. So apparently, like if you're not using the parental controls, as you mentioned, like for example, in the settings of the phone, or allowing access or like not access to certain apps, if you're just looking at what they're using at the moment, they're showing you like the app, you're probably going to be like, you're probably going to see something that it's not real if they know how to change those different features, right? Or access those different features.
Yeah. Wow. It's just a different world out there. So like I said, communication is going to be your best friend. Those regular check-ins are going to be a really great thing for you to keep doing. If you're not doing that right now, put it on your calendar. Every Sunday night, we're going to review our phones. We're going to talk about how our usage was this week. If that seems too much for you, you can just talk to them how they're feeling. How are you feeling? Or you can even notice how they're feeling when you see them with their device, whether it's a computer, whether it's an iPad, a tablet, a phone. Try to pay attention to their behavior. If you feel that they're looking upset, that might be a clue to something that's happening to them. Maybe somebody's bothering them. If they're becoming very secretive with their phone, or they're taking it to their room, maybe they're getting contacted by somebody that they shouldn't be contacted by. If they're getting cyberbullied, they might be getting a lot of notifications, like somebody always bothering them. Their phone's always going off. So try to pay attention to those cues also. This is one place that you can find some information. It's called the Parents Ultimate Guides. And I'm going to see if I can grab this for you and put it in the chat. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat. This is a place where you can go. See if I can do two things at once. Okay. This is a resource that we have, and it will tell you about the app itself. So for example, the Parent's Ultimate Guide to TikTok. It'll explain what TikTok is. It'll explain if your child's going to use it, how they can use it safely. It'll also let you know all of the negative things that can happen on TikTok. Same thing for Snapchat, Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, Discord, Instagram. We have them for others as well. And then we also have, for example, a Parent's Ultimate Guide on cell phone use, a Parent's Ultimate Guide to privacy settings. This is just an example of some of the ones we have. But it'll help you learn more about those resources. A lot of times as parents, we say, well, I don't know anything about that. We kind of feel like scared of it. We need to really just not be scared of it. We need to learn as much as we can. Another really good thing for you to do, and it's very empowering for your kids and it helps build that relationship, ask them to teach you about the app. Tell them to show you what they like about the app. Use it with them. You know, that gives you a good idea of what they're doing online. It gives you a good idea of who their friends are. If they're not going to be open to you with that, then you have this, right? Another thing is that kids are making fake accounts too. Like Instagram, they have these fake Instagram accounts and they're calling them Finstas. So they put things on there that, for example, they don't want everyone to see. When my kids got social media, I required them that I had to be their friend, right? Now I'm looking back thinking, did they have a fake account and I didn't know about it? Like they were sneaky. And so right now my daughter has a Finsta. She's 26, but she has a Finsta. And I ask her, can I be your friend on your Finsta? And she says, no. And she's 26. And I'm like, what can you possibly be putting on there that's not for everybody to see? She goes, that's not it. It's just that I have my very close friends there. And like Instagram is like everybody, right, that I let on there. But still, it makes me wonder. But see, she's 26, right? There are kids that are younger and they're doing that. So we just have to be very vigilant. It's hard. It's a hard job, but with a little guidance and a little communication, it can be better. Another thing we want to do is we want to create good habits and we want to start young. So as young as you can, start talking about being a good digital citizen with your kids as early as preschool. Like, this is how we use our devices. This is the sites that we go on. This is why. This is how I use my app. This is how I use my phone. I charge my phone in the kitchen, whatever, right? Like, be a good role model and then review your family values. As a family, how long are you going to use technology? Are you going to have a device-free dinner, for example? That's something that you can instill. If it's getting in the way of your meals, you can just say, you know, we're going to have a device-free dinner. If that doesn't work for you, start with a few days. Like, we're going to have device-free dinner, 3 days a week to start. Sometimes you do need your phone there. You might be a doctor, or you might be another, you might have another occupation that your boss needs to get a hold of you. Explain it to them. I'm waiting for an important phone call. That's why my phone is right here. If you do take a call at dinner, we're being a good role model, right? We don't want them to do that to us when they have their phone. You have to take the phone call because you're waiting for a special phone call. It's an emergency. You're somebody in your family is sick, God forbid. You're waiting for an update. You're waiting for a doctor to call you back. You're waiting for your boss to call you. Explain to them, I need to get this call because this is my boss. I need to get this call because this is your grandma and I need to talk to her. Always talk about why you're doing things that you don't want them to do because they're looking at us. And so a lot of times they're going to do what we model. So just explain to them, I'm breaking my rule right now, but it's because of this. And then just always explain your expectations to them. Another good thing to do is always incorporate their ideas too. So when you're reviewing family rules and your values, incorporate their ideas and include them, because then the buy-in is going to be easier. They're going to be more likely to follow it. And then also always talk about what's okay to share and what's not okay to share. A lot of times, parents, we put pictures of our kids on our social media accounts. If your children don't want you to put their picture on social media, don't do it. If they ask you, I don't want you to put my picture on there, we have to be respectful, because when they become old enough to have social media, we want to make sure that they're going to be respectful to other people too. And like if their friends say, please don't post that picture, they're going to have learned that also. Also, another thing to really be careful about is making sure they don't take pictures in front of your house with the address, that you don't take pictures of them in their school t-shirt in front of their school. Anything that can identify them to where they live, be very careful about that, because even if you have a private account, somebody can always take a screenshot of that and share it. And so even though we have our private accounts, it can still get out there. So those are some other ways that we can keep them safe.
I have a question from Carmen. She's actually wondering, does this recommendations work also with 16-year-old boys?
Well, and that's the thing. It might not, right? All children are different. And if you do need to be a little stricter with your child, then that's something that you're going to have to adjust. And that's why it's so important to start really early. But it is very normal for them to want their privacy. It's very normal for them to want to be trusted. So what you can do is you can maybe meet halfway, right? You can say, I'm going to let you have this phone, but I don't want you to take it to your room. You can go use it over there. And maybe when he's over there, you just let him have his privacy, for example. But some of the ones that you feel very strongly about, I think as a parent, you just have a right to do that. Kids are going to be mad like they are with everything else. They usually get over it after a few days. But always explain to them why. Always explain to them why. Another thing that we found that was interesting, and I used to do this too. I used to take their phone away when they were in trouble. Somebody we did some research, and it was our mental health research. And we found that kids that are having trouble, like at school with friends, sometimes they don't have friends in real life and they only have friends online. And so they might have found their people online for whatever reason. They might be really good at science, or they might be really good at video games. And for whatever reason, they found a friend. Talk to your kids about who their friends are. I didn't want my kids to be friends with people that they didn't know in person. But if your child is having trouble making friends and they found somebody that's a friend, make sure it's who they say they are, right? Make sure that you can see them on camera and it's not a 40-year-old pretending to be a 15-year-old, because sometimes that's the only friend our kid's going to have. And so a lot of times if we take the phone away from them, now they don't have any connection, and kids just want to be connected. Again, you have to make the decision as a parent. You have to be in tune with what's happening, and always be vigilant, right? Those are just some things. Those are just some things
that I would like to add is, like, especially in teams or in middle school, something that is concerning is there are some older people that are grooming the children or the kids just to do different things. Could be for, I know, they can be used to sell drugs or stuff like that, or just human trafficking. You never know, or just to do or get into trouble, like get into a fight, participate in X, Y, and Z challenge. So that's why it's so important what you are saying, that we need to be careful, because we never know, and they can actually subordinate our children to do stuff that could be very dangerous.
Yeah. And there are some warning signs, right? There are some red flags that we can look for with grooming. If your child has changed their appearance, if they're being very secretive, if all of a sudden they have new friends or they're talking differently, there are different things we can think about, making sure that you talk about this with them. Don't be afraid to bring up these iffy situations. A lot of times we feel like if we bring these situations up, they're going to give them ideas. This is happening with our kids and they know what's happening. So we can warn them. We can tell them, if somebody's promising you something, it's probably because they want something back, right? If you notice that your child has some gifts, some things that you're like, where did you get that? Like, those are all warning signs. Like, who gave you that? Especially if it's an expensive gift or whatever. A lot of times kids are getting drugs online, and it's very scary that they're making these drug deals online. So they use emojis too. So look at the emojis that they're using. A lot of times they use different emojis. They mean different drugs. So look that up. I can't tell you all of them, but for example, like ice is one of them, and they'll use like an ice cube or they'll use a diamond. And so look at the emojis that your kids are using. I've also heard that kids are using meal delivery as a drug deal. So the parent thinks that the child is getting food delivered and it comes in a bag and they take their bag and they go, and parents think it's food. And this is more for like the older kids, right? So yeah, I know, I wish these things didn't happen, but wishing is not going to be that's not an approach, right? We can hope and dream all we want, but that's not an approach. We have to be realistic what's happening. Most of the time, these bad things aren't happening. Most of the time, our kids aren't getting groomed. Most of the time, there aren't online predators. Most of the time, our kids aren't going to buy drugs, but there just one time is going to be too much, right? And so we just have to be vigilant, have these conversations, create the relationship you want with your child. This relationship is your relationship to have with them. Make sure that you're coming from a place of love, a place of understanding, a place of no judgment. Because if you come from that place, they're going to be more open with you. They're going to be more inclined to open up to you or to come to you when there's a problem. And then also letting them know, like, if somebody approaches you online, I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to blame you for getting into trouble online. You know, we have to understand as parents that they're curious. Kids are curious. They're going to do things. They're going to participate in things we don't want them to do. For example, sexting. I'm not for it, right? But we need to let them know, like, this is what we want. This is what we don't want. We don't want you to engage in this type of behavior because of A, B, and C. This can follow you forever. This is not good for you emotionally to do this. This is not okay. If they do get into something like that and you find out, talk to them from a place of understanding and empathy and say, I know you felt pressured, or I know you're trying to fit in, but we can get over this and we can change. Like, the minute we shut them down, they're going to shut down. They're never going to share with us. And so it's really tricky right now. It's really tricky to be a parent in this digital age. So a lot of it's going to come down to the relationship that you have and being open with them and not afraid to talk about it. We do have these family tech planners that are really, they're really great. And this is a resource that you can use to start these conversations. And so it's kind of like a contract where you can sit down with your kids and you can talk to them about creating this plan. And we have different ones for different ages. This is for kids 2 to 8, but we also have ones that are for middle schoolers and for high schoolers. And so you go through it's like a tech plan. You go through it together and you talk about what tech is going to look like in your family. What are the rules going to be? What are the apps and the shows or the websites that they're going to be allowed to be on? You can even put consequences on there. You can put this up somewhere where they're going to see it all the time, on your refrigerator, on a wall somewhere. You can also fill these out online. I really like the print option because you can put it up on the wall as a reminder. But if you don't have a printer and you can do it online, that's good too. I think you can share it. You can also copy it on another paper. But this is a good place to start having those conversations, and then revisit this as well, because kids will grow up, their needs will change, times will change, your family might change. So your family schedule might change. So have these handy so that you can always go back to them. And it helps have these conversations. And then, of course, always use our ratings and reviews to help guide you. If you're not sure if a website is okay for your child, we have ratings and reviews on websites. If you don't know if the app is okay for your child, go onto our ratings and reviews. It'll tell you what it's like. We rate it for 5 stars or 4 stars and so on, based on, different things, language, violence, things like that. So like video games, different applications, the features that they have, it gets rated for different things. If you see a common sense selection badge, that usually means, that does mean that it's something that we have already vetted, that we've already looked at, and you can take the time to look at the review, but you can feel confident that we've already looked at it and we say it's okay for families and kids. So, because I know it's a lot. You do get 3 of these a month free. and then it's going to ask you to give money. You don't have to give money. You just have to wait a month. It's kind of like the New York Times or any of those. You get a certain amount free and then you have to wait. So that's the only thing with that. But we do have them for podcasts as well. Podcasts are becoming very popular with kids. And there are a lot of things that we can encourage our kids to listen to. So if our kids are having problems with expressing their feelings, we can encourage them to listen to a podcast. It's really important for our kids to see themselves represented. When we talk about race and representation, it's very important for kids to see themselves represented in the media that they're consuming, whether that's a podcast, whether that's a TV show, whether that's a movie. We want to make sure that those representations are positive. When I was growing up, my mom's from Mexico, and when I was growing up, and even now, the characters that look like me and my mom and us, they're gangsters, they're cartels, the girls were teenage mothers. Like, that's what I grew up with. And even now, they're cartels, they're gangsters, they're drug dealers. It's terrible. So find positive representation for your kids where they can see themselves represented. So we have podcasts, and even little kids can listen to podcasts. It's really good for them, for their comprehension. It's also good for their listening skills, to keep their attention and keep their listening skills. So we have all those things for podcasts as well. And then, as I was mentioning, the common sense selections, those are with the badge. We have them for entertainment, but we also have them for learning. So we have lists that you can go through, and you can choose high quality content with and for your kids this way. And then when you are considering, when you are choosing media, these are some things to consider. Consider if it's developmentally appropriate for your child. If your child is 10 and they want to play a certain video game, use your judgment. This is not developmentally appropriate. We're not going to get this game for you, right? Is it age appropriate? And that can be a little trickier because some kids are more mature than others. Use your own judgment, but also try to find things that align with their interests. And then above all, try to make something educational if you can. If they're already going to be spending time on a device, try to find a device that is not only entertaining, but also educational. And then a really great way to figure out what they're doing is to use it with them. Ask them if you can play the video game with them. Sometimes you'll see a little notification come up and it'll say, Michael wants to talk to you right now. And then you're like, who's Michael? I've never heard you talk about Michael before. So it's a good way for you to spy, but not spy. And so if you use it with them, a lot of things can happen in the moment where you can have these natural conversations. It's also a really great way to boost their self-esteem if they can teach you something. And it also really, it motivates the child to share more with you. And it can also strengthen that bond between you and your child. And then prepare them for online communication. If they are going to be social online, make sure that you have these scenarios already up with them, that you've already practiced these what ifs, that you've practiced, maybe you've role played, like, what if this happens? Or I'm going to give you a scenario. What would you do? Practice with your children before they get online. And also be a good role model. And here are some things to avoid trouble. Give them the clear expectations, and we've already talked about that. Tell them what they can share and what they shouldn't, no matter how safe it seems. Always stay aware and shield your kid, especially if they're vulnerable. If kids are having trouble in real life, they're probably going to have trouble online. So if your child is already having relationship issues in person, giving them a phone or giving them permission to be social online, like on social media, might just make that problem worse. So it could increase the chances of cyberbullying. So you really have to think about what your child needs the most. And also remind them that I was talking about earlier about the Instagram with the girls. Always remind them that everything they see is not what it seems. People only put the best part of themselves online. They might have these feelings of missing out. It's called FOMO. I don't even know if they're using that anymore, but fear of missing out. A lot of times we just want the joy of missing out. And so sometimes it's okay. And sometimes it's less pressure. So talk to them about, it's okay. I wasn't meant to be there. And that's not for me. And just building that self-esteem up in your kids and giving them alternatives to something like if they're left out of a party, because once they get onto social media, they're going to be exposed to all of that. And so having those conversations with them time and time again, not ignoring it, just asking them how they're feeling about it, asking them what they can do instead of feeling bad. letting them feel bad for a little bit, but then asking them to, let's go do something so we can feel better. Those red flag feelings that I was telling you about when we talk about online predators or grooming, or even if somebody, one of your friends is asking, one of their friends is asking them to do something like a challenge, like one of those social media challenges, or to send them, an inappropriate photo. Teach your kid about a red flag feeling and about that feeling they get in their head or in their tummy, right? Their stomach, that doesn't quite seem right. And go through different scenarios and talk about some things that they can do to get out of it. Give them a script, give them an excuse. Blame your mother. Say, mom says I have to get off the phone now. Bye. Like if they don't know what else to do, or say, my mom checks my phone, or my phone's getting a little glitchy. If you don't want to tell your friends your mom checks your phone, you could say something like, my phone's acting up and my mom's going to take my phone to the store. And so she might see my things. And so, you can give them ways out of these situations, of these social dilemmas. We don't have time to turn and talk or even to share in the chat right now, but these are some things to think about when you're thinking about your own kids, the red flag feeling. And as I mentioned, keyboards can make us cruel. Talk to them about cyberbullying. Talk to them about even themselves being kind to others. It's not only other kids, it can be our own children who are being mean. Again, they're kids. It doesn't mean they're a bad kid. It just means that they're making bad choices. So some examples to look out for are hurtful messages, again, posting inappropriate photos or spreading rumors. Giving your child those tools to stand up for themselves and to stand up for others is going to be really important. Please don't put that picture of me online. Please respect this, giving them that confidence to stand up to people. They'll be more respected than if they just complain about it, actually asking for what they want. And if your child is being cyberbullied, some things that you can do immediately are disconnect, block and report, take a screenshot, and then save anything you can, and then contact the appropriate parties to resolve the issue. A lot of times, if kids are still using Snapchat, if you take a screenshot, it'll tell the person that you took a screenshot. Have another phone ready. Take the other phone and take a picture of the screen so that there's no evidence that they took the screenshot, because that could give even more bullying, right? Oh, you took a screenshot. Haha. There can be even more things. And above all, offline risk often precedes online risk. So if your kid's already participating in risky behavior in real life, they're probably going to participate in risky behavior online. So that's just something that we have found out also. If your child is also being bullied in person, chances are they're going to be bullied online with the same people. Everybody's online nowadays, right? If your child does not know how to treat others yet, if they're still trying to, get better about treating people nicely, again, doesn't mean our children are bad. It just means that they're having some trouble, maybe getting along with others. If that's your child, giving them a phone might give them another tool to be mean to somebody, and then the cyberbullying continues or starts, and then it can also come back to them. So just really being in tune with your child. And if your child, if you feel that everything's great, these are some things that you can think about when you are trying to decide if there's a problem. Are they physically healthy and sleeping enough? Are they connecting socially with everybody? Are they doing well in school? Are they still interested in the same things that they were interested before? Are they having fun when they're using their technology? And then other things like, are they being bullied or harassed offline, like I was talking about? And are there any changes in behavior? Any changes in behavior, as you know, can signal drug use. It can signal friendship problems. It could signal mental health issues. It could signal grooming that's happening online or an inappropriate relationship. So any type of changes in behavior, also changes in physical appearance. So those are some things that are red flags. We have conversation starters for you if you don't know where to start. These are also available online. These are some things you can just help when these are some tips for you to get the conversation going. A lot of times we don't know where to start. I'm just going to go fast because we might be out of time. But like I said before, when they are using their favorite app, talk to them about why they like it. Ask them about certain apps that make them feel unsafe. Ask them about places that they want to avoid. Ask them if they need any help. Ask them, where can I help support you? What would be helpful? if I did. They might say, well, I wish that you would let me take my phone to my room. Okay. Maybe you can trust your child. Maybe you've already decided this for yourself. You might be able to say, okay, I'm going to let you take it for an hour or whatever. Or if you don't think they're ready, you can say, well, we're not ready yet, but I will, I will try not to be hovering over you when you're on your phone. So just work with each other. And then always know when it's time to step in. If their online world becomes more important than their offline world, like if they're constantly connected, right? That's a red flag. If it's demanding all of their attention, if they're losing interest in other things, if you see that their grades are slipping, if you see that their friendships are suffering, they only want to do one thing, is be on their device. It might be that they're just becoming addicted to their devices, or it might be that now they have found somebody else online that they want to spend their time with. And that could be a groomer. So if they're ignoring their best friends all of a sudden, and now, they're on this device, and this is usually probably for the middle school and above. Those are some red flags. And yeah, lack of in-person relationships can mean a contact with strangers online. So the key takeaways for today is just review your rules, know what you want for your family. Don't just say don't, explain why, and then make those rules together. Teach them to avoid communicating with strangers online, and explain that followers can still be strangers. A lot of young kids right now want to be social media influencers. There's a big push for this. They think they're going to make lots of money. They think they're going to be famous. So a lot of them are creating these public accounts, and they're like, they're not my friends. They're just my followers. They're not going to harm me. Followers can still be strangers. Look at who's following them. If your child is 16 or 17 and it looks like there's a 40-year-old man on there or woman, you might be like, who's that? But keep those accounts private as much as possible. Again, talk about those red flag feelings. And last but not least, let me move this out of my way, use it with them if they'll allow you to, and discuss things as they happen. And also be a good role model. And then some additional resources. This is where you can find all of our resources, commonsense.org. I will put this link in the chat as well for you right now. And, that's such a big one. The role model is such a big one. When social media first started, my kids were still pretty little. Let me think about this for a little bit. 2008. So 2007, 8, I got on Facebook. No, 2008 or 2009, I got on Facebook. And I remember I would put pictures on there. Not suggestive pictures, but sometimes I would put selfies, and I was much younger. And sometimes I would put, like, if I went to happy hour with my friends, I would put a picture of us like toasting, and I'm thinking to myself later on, that's not a good role model, because when my kids get on social media, guess what they're going to do? So just be really cognizant of the things we're doing, because whatever our kids are watching us do, they're probably going to imitate. So, yeah, just be careful with your own habits. And then we do have our Celebrating Community pages, and that's a resource hub to support your child's identity development. Again, it's really important for them to see themselves represented in a positive light. So that's also a really great resource. We have book lists, we have TV shows, where you can help make good choices for your kids that can not only help them with their identity, but also just make them feel confident as they go out into this world. And then we do have these new videos called Kids in Tech. And one of them is called When to Get Your Child a Phone. And the other one is called How Much is Too Much. And these are short videos that can give you additional advice on these topics. So in the chat, or if we have a little bit of time, we're a little bit over, if you would like to share with me what is something you're going to do to help your family create safer online experiences after today, please feel free to share those in the chat with me, or we can take a few volunteers. We can also look at the chat right now to see if we are going to get any questions in there. I'm going to put this link also in the chat. If you feel inclined to do so, give me a survey. This helps me just in my own professional growth. It also helps me report back to my own supervisor. If there was something you liked, something you didn't like, I'm good with I'm good with constructive criticism, but I hope I was able to give you a general overview. It is a lot of information. I hope this isn't the last time that we meet, but if you want more information, visit us on our website. You can also follow us on social media. We put lots of tips on there. And, just keep it going, keep the conversation going with your kids.